Hello there, welcome to my channel. This is going to be the first in a short review series around the iFlytek AI Note Air 2. This video will feature kind of the unboxing and my first impressions of the hardware. The next video will go into kind of a visual tour of what you can do with the software, and then it culminates with my final review, which will include battery tests. Now, what's interesting about this device is that here we are in August of 2025, at least that's when I'm filming this, and it's almost a year after this device came out. So why has it taken me so long to review it? Well, the big reason is that when this device first came out, I didn't want to review it. One of the rules that I have is that I never review a device unless I have some sense of optimism about it, some sense that that device can either do something better than competitors or at a better price point, or there's just something exciting about that particular device. I just want to come in at least with the expectation that maybe in the end this device will be something that I can recommend. And at the time the iFlytek came out, from what I knew about it, I didn't think there was anything there. In particular, what concerned me about it was that it had a relatively high price point. It was didn't have really any features that particularly stood out, and what it was emphasizing was around things like taking minutes and meetings, and that was something that I think kind of Microsoft and Teams has quite a bit of an advantage at right now, not to mention other potential solutions. So I didn't see eink or an eink note-taking device as really being something that I could, look at favorably relative to what's out there in the marketplace right now. There just wasn't anything there that I thought, would make it worth my while. And so I passed. Now recently, the company, or rather a sales company representing iFlytek, reached out to me and asked if I'd be willing to review the device with affiliate links, and I don't really do affiliate links with one exception last year. And so I said no, but maybe I could review the device, and we just didn't come to terms in the end, which is fine. There's all sorts of business reasons why that might have been the case, but it got me kind of intrigued, and I, in my research had found out that they had since included Google Play, which is huge, absolutely huge, to include the Google Play Store, because it opens it up not just as a standalone device, but now it's a really effective e-reader because it has front lighting and it has the size and the weight and what have you. At least that potential is there. And there were a couple interesting things about the note-taking aspect, which I thought might be worth looking at as well. So for all those reasons, I've kind of evolved since where I was a year ago when I didn't want to review the device. To be clear, I did purchase this device on my own. I didn't end up in any type of arrangement with the company. In the end, I just was intrigued enough that I went ahead and made the purchase, and I bought it from Amazon. Now, let's take a look at where this device stands, because there are some pretty notable hills this device is going to have to climb in order to end up becoming, say, something that I recommend. And I'm going to put a graphic on the screen. And what you can see on this table is what I think are the two devices that you would compare to the iFlytek. And so if we start with price, we can see the iFlytek is the most expensive of the three by a somewhat notable margin. And the Viwoods AI Paper Mini is the least expensive of the three. And that's particularly problematic for this device because I think that the iFlytek device most closely stacks up to the AI Paper rather than the SuperNote Nomad. And we'll get to that as we go through these specs. But we are talking about the 7.8 to 8.2 inch range. There's not a lot of devices in the marketplace nowadays in that range. They all operate Android. Android 11 on this device, whereas the AI Paper Mini has 13. They all have pretty much the same resolution. There's no notable difference between the resolution. Same amount of RAM. The storage is significantly better on Viwoods. There is no SD card on the iFlytek. There is on the SuperNote Nomad. Batteries are roughly the same size, but of course what will matter in the end isn't necessarily the battery size, it's how they've optimized their system performance and what that means in terms of battery drain. So that'll come down the pike in terms of testing, but the size of the battery itself isn't particularly notable. All these are fairly lightweight, as you'd expect for its size class, and again, the Flytek is very similar to the Viwoods in that regard. And finally, as mentioned earlier, you have Google Play both on the Mini and on the iFlytek device. It should be noted that Google Play didn't come out in either device when they were first released. That was subsequent to both. That's not the first parallel we'll see between these two devices. And they both have front lighting, although it's worth noting that the iFlytek does have warm lighting as well as cold, where the Viwoods AI Paper Mini only has cold front lighting. So there is a bit of an advantage there. Now, talking about these three devices, I think the Nomad kind of is its own category. It's very much a note-focused device. The note-taking app, in my opinion, is the most professional of all the device manufacturers in the e-ink space. I've talked about this in other videos and other reviews. And I don't think that either the Viwoods or the iFlytek would compete if you were just looking at the aspect of note-taking. I think the Nomad easily is the more sophisticated of the three devices. So the advantage that Viwoods and iFlytek have is, again, going back to this Google Play Store and the front lighting. So now you've got a very effective e-reading device that you can read from Kindle to Kobo to Libby to whatever. Any type of bookstore that has an Android app, you'd be able to run on these devices, and that sets it apart from the SuperNote device. True, the SuperNote device does have the ability to sideload applications or sideload APK files, but that process is a little more involved. It's not something that everyone wants to do, and the Google Play Store certainly makes it a lot easier and more reliable. So I kind of see the Nomad as being its own separate thing, very much focused on note-taking, where the AI Paper and the iFlytek are more focused on that combination, that balance between reading and note-taking. So given that perspective, assuming that you would agree to that, then the challenge for iFlytek is pretty simple. How do they differentiate themselves from the Viwoods AI Paper Mini, because they're charging a premium for their device, and by almost $100. So is there $100 or just under $100 worth of value the iFlytek brings that the Viwoods AI Paper Mini does not? That's what we're going to find out in this review series, and that probably we won't start to uncover until we get into the next video, but at least we'll start to see how it stacks up in terms of its hardware in this video. So I hope that context helps. So given that, let's go ahead and jump on in. I'm going to unbox the video live, as it were, on film, and then we'll go through the startup procedure on the device, mess around a bit and see if we can get it set up for the Google Play Store, which will require a little bit of certification process. And then I'll give my final thoughts on what I think about what I've seen so far. All right, let's dig on in. Okay, so here it is with its plastic wrap. You'll notice that on the front it says iFlytek A-Note Air, but no number 2. If we go to the back of the device, however, and we look at the labeling, you can see it's clearly indicated as number 2 here. So make what you will of that. It also says Air 2 here as well. And here are some other additional specifications. Let's go ahead and take off this wrapper and unload the contents. Okay, so with the wrapper off, let's go ahead and push out the contents. We'll start here with the cover, and then we have the device right next to that. Let's go ahead and open up the cover. There's some instructions. Looks like it might be magnetic, but we'll take a look. Got a little plastic tab there, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that off, like so. Well, that is in there. There we go. Pull that out. And here is the cover itself. It's got a little plastic piece over this kind of bird logo. Not sure what that logo represents. And, oh, there we go. Okay, so it connects via hooks. Okay, that will be interesting. And then we have this interesting tab here, which reads, lift the hidden pen clip and provide 2 options, magnetic pen holder and pen clip holder. This is very similar to what we see with some of the Viwoods cases where you can either just connect the stylus via a magnet, or you can pull out the loop and have a kind of a manual connection. So that's nice. Excellent. All right, so that's pretty straightforward. There's the instructions on how to connect into the latch. So just basically kind of hook it on and push it down. All right, let's go ahead then and open up the device itself. And here we have some instructions in terms of the buttons and how the on screen will work. Okay, that's nice. Ooh, that's nice and light. They have curved corners, which is important for holding onto the device. The edges are slightly curved as well, so that should give it a nice, comfortable grip. Let's go ahead and take off this plastic sheet, like so, revealing the device itself. Let's go ahead and take a look at the back. There's a little bit of a ridge here, but not too pronounced. There's your camera, and it looks like it's got a flash as well. And let's see, along one side, nothing along this side. That's your power button. You've got your USB-C connector, and it looks like there's a battery indicator right there. Oh, there's your basically your connection points to the case, and nothing on the other side. So pretty straightforward. All right. Got your stylus right here. There we go. This is an EMR stylus, so it's not going to require any type of charging. Nice little bit of give there on the eraser. So we'll go ahead and test that magnetic connection. Okay, it's okay. It's kind of weak. That's not too bad. Yeah, that's all right. You have to get it just right, but you can get a pretty good connection there. And then finally, we should have some documentation and our USB-C cable in here. Oops. There's your USB-C cable, and there's your documentation, which we'll promptly ignore. Go ahead and pop out that cable. No extra nibs, so you just get the one. And this is a USB-C-A to C cable. Very good, and that's it. Pretty straightforward. Let's see how hard it is to put this device in the case. So I'm going to go ahead and insert and then push down. It'll click. That's a nice grip. Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's a pretty nicely designed package there. Let's see how hard it is to take this out. Push up. Hopefully, there we go. It snaps out and it comes right out. So not too bad. I don't know if I prefer that to a magnetic connection, but it's pretty good. I wouldn't say it's too much worse than a magnetic connection. So there it is. That is basically, let's get the USB-C. That is basically what you get in this package. Okay, a few miscellaneous items to note. First off, there were a number of stickers. There was one sticker on the back of this device. There were a couple stickers here on the stylus. And I was able to remove all those stickers. I'm getting a little bit of a stickiness on the QR code stylus on this, but it's not too bad. So it took a little bit of effort to get the stickers off, but you can do it manually without use of any tools, and it pretty much comes off mostly clean, just a touch of stickiness to it. Of course, you could just leave the stickers on, but I'm the kind of guy that likes to take them off. In terms of the stylus, as I mentioned, there is this eraser, which is just a little bit of give. That's a good sign. I've seen other styluses have a similar one, and usually I'm pretty favorable toward these. We'll see how it works in practice, but that's a good sign there. And then there's a button on the stylus as well, and we'll see what that does, or if it's programmable or what have you. One thing, again, we're going to be comparing quite a bit to the Viwoods Mini, And dimensions wise, they are nearly identical. I would say the AI Note might be just a hair taller than the Viwoods. I'll just put this right on top. I don't know if the camera is going to pick it up. It's that subtle. Yeah, you can't even tell on the camera the difference. Let me flip this around and put the AI on top of the Viwoods. Yeah, you can't tell. They're just almost identical. The AI paper might be just a hair thinner, but it's any difference between these two is so subtle it's not even worth noting. So the dimensions are almost identical in that regard. Okay, let's go ahead and do a weigh-in then and see what we're talking about. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. So we're expecting about 231 grams. Let's get that to, there we go. And let's see what we've got. 236, that's pretty close to what they stated. Not too bad if we add the stylus in there. That's gonna add another 14, so we're about 250. And then if we throw the cover, the entire package comes in at just under 350, 348. So that's pretty good for everything combined. That's a nice light weight. Okay, so here's everything all packaged together. Again, putting the device in the case is just lining it up and pushing some pressure down until it kind of snaps. Pretty straightforward. You want to lock it the same way. And let's go ahead and open this up. And let's go ahead and start with the startup procedures. Let's go ahead and press the power button and see what it takes to get this thing going. All right, launching this for the first time. Never launched an iFlytek device before, so this will be interesting to see how it differs from others. Is it going to be an elaborate startup, or are they going to get you pretty much right in? Let's take a look here. Okay, that took a few minutes. By the way, while it was doing that, I did look at the instruction manual, which is something I don't normally do. And it'll be interesting to see how the bottom section here works. It looks like, for example, to get into Chrome, you just click on this button and slide to the right. Similarly, this icon, which appears to be like a quick note icon, you hold that and go left. And then to advance pages, it looks like you swipe this way. So that's kind of a curious navigation feature that I haven't seen before, assuming that I do understand what the middle option there is. But let's go ahead and click on Start here. Okay, so it is touch. English, click on the country, North America. I like that. That's a nice, instead of having to scroll, that's a nice way of summarizing the options. Okay, we're going to go ahead and log in. All right, connecting to Wi-Fi. And that's pretty simple. Go ahead and continue. Date and time. Here is our usage agreement, which I'm going to hastily agree to and move on. Here they're going to ask for an account. I'll set up an account. Okay, I've created an account and I'm logging in now. And we'll just say yes. I don't want a lock screen password, so we'll keep going. Okay. All right, and then click on this, and we are in. Okay, so now we're going to go through a little bit of a tutorial here. So it looks like you swipe up from the bottom to switch between tasks. Okay, so Task Manager is through the center. Got it. Swiping from the bottom is, your settings. We'll definitely take a closer look at all this when we go through the video tutorial, the visual tour in the next video. And this is what I talked about with the instructions. I already know. That's funny. That's accurate. And we are in. Okay, very interesting. So it looks like the default is in your notes. I will say quickly about the notes. Let me go ahead and I guess this will start a note. Yeah. Oh, okay, so we've got a little section for the title. We'll call first note. One thing I really want to point out right off the bat is there's a scratchiness to the screen, which is really good. I really like the sound, and there's a little bit of a feel to it. Forget it. Anyway, it feels great. Yeah, I really like that. That's terrible writing. Yep, eraser's pretty good. Okay, so I'll test this and go through the motions when, you know, going into the next couple of videos. But my initial reaction is I do like what we're seeing here with the writing feedback in terms of the sound and the feel. Let's do that. Task Manager. There we go. Okay, so yeah, it opens up and then you can clear them individually or all at once. This looks like there's a bit of a calendar functionality here. My understanding is this will link to Outlook and perhaps Google Calendar as well, but I'll validate that. And then your reading section is here. Okay, I'm going to check to see if there's any updates. And there is. Let's go ahead and download that. I'll start the timer and we'll come back to this when that is ready. Okay, so Google Play is something that was not natively available on this device. So I had to do a system update. That update actually only took 11 minutes. That's really quick for a system update. It's not unusual for various manufacturers to release a device and then have a pretty quick update so that when you first receive your device, you have to update it. That was definitely the case here, but 11 minutes is short. Now this icon over here, this 4 square icon, is basically access to the App Store. And it looks like this is where you can find out about Google Play. So we're going to click on this. Okay, there's your Enable button. We'll click on that. And then we have to open Google Play to complete authentication. Okay, and here we are. We finally have Google Play up and running. It took me, I had to kind of click on a few things to figure it out. I ended up restarting the device, but in total, it took only about 15 minutes to finally get my device certified. And as you can see, to get access into the Google Play Store. So that is great. How do we get out of here, though? That's an interesting question. Let's see, is there a back button? Swipe up and just cancel Google Play. Okay, so now we're back. There might be a more elegant way of doing that, but that's how I did it. So basically, in order to get to your apps, you click on the 4 squares there. They have their own app store, which is here. If I click on that, you can go in and see some of the apps that are available. There's page 1. There's page 2, hopefully. There we go. Okay, so not a ton of apps available, so it is good that you have access to that Google Play Store. The installation guide, I believe, I took a quick look at it. It seems like it's a guide to load in your own APKs, which really you shouldn't need to do with Google Play, but that functionality is there. This hint is kind of interesting. If I click on that, it's actually more legalese than it is any type of hint or help. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But we'll do a full review of the software. I've got a lot to learn about this particular device. I think I'm getting the hang of it, but there's certainly some nuances I want to make sure I know before I film so that you can make the most efficient use of your time as we're navigating that. And that will all be in our visual tour. But this kind of concludes kind of the unboxing and the setup process for the device. Let's close out with some final thoughts and then we'll talk about where we go from here. Okay, so now having gone through the unboxing, kind of the setup process, and I've actually had a chance to kind of play with the device a little bit between that and the filming of this particular aspect of the video. What are my thoughts? Well, we'll start with the focus of this video, which of course is around the hardware. And I have to say, I'm generally impressed with the hardware. In fact, I don't really have any particular negatives about it. The one thing that kind of I would criticize a little bit is around the case and the fact they use this hook system as opposed to magnets. But this is a small criticism, to be sure. The hooks seem to work fair enough. I just think it's a little easier to take a device out of a magnet case than it is from these hook cases. But it's certainly still a functional case, and you can take the device in and out. Just a little bit more effort's involved. Other than that, I think the quality of the device is great. I like the black. I think black is a great color for these devices as opposed to white, which I do think doesn't age particularly well, as it yellows over time, although it does take a number of years for that process to start to become apparent. But generally speaking, yeah, I've been pretty happy with what I've seen. It feels very comfortable in the hand, even maybe a little bit more comfortable than the AI Paper Mini, although again, not by a huge margin. But yeah, no, I pretty much am happy with what I'm seeing from a hardware perspective. From a software perspective, we're just starting to dig in on that. So, we'll show in the next video exactly what you can do with this device. And in the review, I'll definitely be able to contrast and compare with Viwoods. But the one thing I will say at this particular point in time is, the question I asked in the beginning of the video essentially was, could the iFlytek AI Paper AI Note Air 2, sorry, it's not the easiest name to roll off the tongue, can it justify a $90 or so premium over the Viwoods AI Paper Mini, which I said right the first time. And I don't see it right now. There are a few intriguing aspects of the device I want to explore a little bit more. There's symbols, for example, that you can write in the note-taking app, which would either trigger a to-do or a kind of an outline indexing of that note. So I want to play with that, and that might be more valuable and useful than I'm currently thinking. So we'll see on that front. But my initial reaction is I don't think that, at least in terms of AI, for example, that it's very limited on this device. It's limited only to a chatbot interface, something the Viwoods has, plus they have embedded queries within their various apps, and they also have the ability in many cases to do customized queries. So Viwoods is very much more sophisticated in terms of AI implementation. I think also, just in terms of simple navigation, oddly enough, it may be that there's something I'm missing, but there are certain times where I just want to go back to the home screen, and there isn't a way to do that. So that might be something that I'll, as I'm going through the software, I may learn some shortcuts and things might take a better turn. But right now, my general thinking is I don't quite see it, but there's more work to be done before I can really make that call. This is just my first impression. So we'll see in the next video where I'm going to go much deeper into what the software can do and how you can navigate the device. That'll help kind of answer some of these questions. And then the third and final video of the series will be my formal review. I'll share the battery test. I'll do much more of a head-to-head comparison against the Viwoods. And then we'll see if I can actually recommend this device or not in the end. One last point I want to make, kind of a postscript, if you will, is there's some odd similarities between this device and the Viwoods device. Now, we've talked about, their specifications and what have you, and they kind of occupy the same space. But I mean, in the software, there are some interesting things. For example, if you go to the page where you're checking for updates, both of these devices have this 3 concentric circles with a little magnifying glass in the center as it's pinging the servers. And then if it identifies that you do have the most up-to-date version of the firmware, it'll say new in there. I don't recall any other device using that particular screen before for their device update page, and yet these are virtually identical to each other, which makes me wonder, is there a relationship between these companies? Did an engineer from one company bolt and start working for the other? I don't know the answer to that, but were a couple other similarities like that as well, all small things, I should point out, that made me wonder, is there a connection here? And if you happen to know that there is, please post those in the comments. I'm not aware of them. I thought they were completely separate companies, one from Singapore, one from China. But there clearly seems to be some some thread that attaches the two. Maybe it's just merely a stylistic one. But having said that, the UI between the two are very different, and that will definitely be a distinguishing feature between the two devices. They are not carbon copies of each other. Just certain aspects maybe go, huh. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have any comments or questions, post those down there. Otherwise, I'll see you in the visual tour, where we really start to dig deep and see what this device can or can't do. All right, until then, I'll see you next time.